Wow, it's taken a while. You're live.
Ladies, gentlemen, it's 8 p.m. The heavy hitters have been brought in to deal with the wet weather. Stevan, Bubalo, of course, I'm joined with the ever youthful Glen Higgs.
That's right.
And it's quite interesting that tonight's topic, wet weather, does it smash property prices? And it most definitely drives the kids insane with boredom. So we thought it's appropriate to have two dads out here.
Yep.
Kids.
Look, probably like a lot of people out there, you struggled on the weekend just how to entertain the kids.
Yep.
We'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the program and some tips.
Yep.
But Stev, what do you think this unseasonable wet weather will do to the hot property market that we're in?
Yeah, so look, it's a good question. When we do get a sudden downpour, a lot of buyers stay home, but there are certain pockets on the northern beaches as well that feel the rain more than others, and generally they're waterfront property.
Yep.
They're low-lying
Yep.
areas on the beaches, and buyers get a little bit cold, and they sometimes shy away from these pockets, which in the warmer months are traditionally some of the hottest pockets you can buy into. Then how do you see prices going with this big rain?
Okay, well, I think you'll have people retreating from properties and getting a reminder about properties that might be in a flood zone.
Yep.
We have properties on the northern beaches that are with big tides that these weather events bring. The last one being in around September, I think, of 2016. It was a big east coast low, came up, washed away all the sand from Collaroy up to South Narrabeen, and there were some properties that were, they thought may fall back into the ocean. The history of that was just sort of coastal sand dunes, and there's arguments on both sides of the fence, but one of them is they should never have been built on there. That all the properties, if you know that section of the northern beaches, should have been on the western side of Pittwater Road, and it should have been just all natural sand dunes there. So people actually, they do have a think about it. In saying that, there was a lakefront property, didn't sell with us, sold with one of our competitors, $1 million over reserve.
Wow.
With the heaviest downpour on Saturday, the auction was held, and people still purchased in there. For a lot of people out there and a lot of agents out there that will be working through these conditions, our thoughts go out to you, because it's not easy. If you live in an area where there hasn't been any floods for the last 20, 30 years, and you're trying to sell properties now, that, being in a 100-year flood zone or a 50-year flood zone will become real top of mind, and you might lose some buyers with that.
I agree with you, Glenn. And look, generally when we've sold property in the past, again, these waterfront properties generally come to mind because they are obviously quite close nearby. And what you see, and I'll use an example, Glenn mentioned 2016, we had the huge weather, and of course the beachfront of Collaroy got washed away. There's arguments left, right, and centre. You build a seawall, it's going to stop that. But I'm going to give you an example. We had a property on the market literally 2 months after that big weather cell kind of hit. Now, it traded quite strongly at the time. Believe it or not, today it'd probably sell for close to $500,000 more. So interesting that when the weather's outside, it seems to be on everyone's mind, but it all passes, and 6 months later, it's a different story with property prices.
Look, I think we've got very short memories with property. So there's a few things, like you don't have to remember when was the last time, there was a flood in that street, or, the water was right up to the eaves. What about when you're purchasing a property? What could you look into? So if it is in the flood zone?
Yes, good question. So a lot of times as a buyer, if you're not very experienced in real estate, you're going to do your due diligence, you're going to read a contract to sell, you're going to talk to your family and friends, and you may find that the property falls under what's called a flood zoning. So most people think this is dire straits for real estate, but I'm going to be honest with you, it could very well be the complete opposite, may never, ever even reach a flood zone. What a flood zoning is that there is a predetermined level at which the water could rise in a worst case scenario. Now, let me give you examples of areas along the northern beaches, and there are many that fall within flood zones. Majority of North Narrabeen flood zone, Narrabeen flood zone, Collaroy flood zone, Dee Why flood zone, Curl flood zone. So, and even heading further north, pockets of Avalon and Carril Bay and all of these areas. So the majority of the northern beaches, if you're close to the water, will fall under this kind of zoning. Now, that doesn't mean it floods all the time out here, because it doesn't. In the last 10 years, Glen, how many times we had a major flood?
Well, I can't remember one in memory in Dee Why.
Yeah.
I can remember, out at Narrabeen. Just recently, we've had Wakehurst Parkway.
Yeah, the
cut
parkways
off.
are always
That goes underwater, but touch wood, no property's been damaged.
Yeah. So what I'm getting back to is that although you might find a property with which will be identified as sitting in a flood zone, there could be a very, very high probability that it is very, very, very unlikely that would occur. If you do sit in a pocket, whereas maybe a higher potential of a rise in water levels, you're going to find that there's different building codes to come into place there. And generally, if you're going to build a new home, it will ask you to lift the property. There is a predetermined level, but it normally sits anywhere from around 1.2 to 1.5 metres. And that's why you'll see houses now that are built closer to lagoons or beaches, or even our office here in Dee Why, believe it or not, is that there's a rise from where you walk into the level at which the office here is placed or housed.
So we're up about a metre,
we're up about a metre, give or take. And to put in an example where people don't know where we might be, we're heading halfway up a hill into the next suburb of Brookvale. So if we're in a flood zone here in Dee Why, 90% of this suburb also falls under
like
that.
we'd be 800 metres away from the beach. We're probably from sea level. We'd probably be a couple of metres above, but there's still that precaution. Now, is there anything in the contract? If you're looking at the contract for sale, I love this property, I can see the river.
Yep.
Is there anything you could look at in the contract of sale?
Absolutely, Glenn. In the we'll say towards the end of the contract in our New South Wales contracts, sale of property contracts, we've got a local council zoning certificate. And within that sort of certification will show you whether or not your home falls in the area. If you're buying an existing property in that zone, you do not need to lift it up or anything like that. You are buying existing; it's already been in place. However, should you wish to build a brand new property, then you may have to apply by these new by these building.
So that would, I think, the old thing we called it back in the day was the 149 certificate.
Yep.
So in there, you'll find a reference to if it falls in the flood zone. But it's something, if you're really concerned about, get the contract out to your conveyancer and solicitor. Say, is there anything in this contract that would I should be looking at for those sorts of issues? The next question, Stev, I suppose, is would you buy it?
Oh, absolutely, I would. Like I said, these pockets, generally, when you're talking about a property that may fall under the influence of water, it's because you're close to water. And in my opinion, the closer you are to water, it's an insurance policy on the value of your home. It actually increases the value of your property. So, look, I've seen a lot of real estate like this, and I would purchase it personally. I'll give you two great examples. One, again, was the home that we had on the market shortly after the Collaroy the sands were washed away. And we had buyers coming through and saying, look, I'm not going to buy it just because of that. We're not sure. It's sold. And no doubt in my mind, it would probably sell for an extra $500,000 today, if not maybe $1 million. The other property that I can reference is a home that I sold on Wimbledon Avenue back in North Narrabeen.
In England?
Yes, Wimbledon, England, on the tennis court. Wimbledon Avenue in Narrabeen.
Did you see James LaPlau there?
I did. Novak Djokovic, our favourite, was there too. But guys, look, I'll put it into perspective. I heard a lot of these comments at the time, and this is a street which houses maybe 30 homes with direct lakefront access, and a lot of people were scared to buy into that pocket. Now, that pocket's done really well over the time that we've since traded that property, and it hasn't flooded. The street has not flooded. people thinking about Narrabeen, look, if the council manages the lagoon system correctly and opens it up to the waterways, it's very hard to flood through there as well. So,
but once again, get advice on it, get independent advice, get your solicitor's advice, because with these rewards, there's also carries risks. We've all seen, the news and that tragedy where the couple were getting married and at the same time they're about to get married, their house is getting swept down the river as well. We don't have those sort of waterways on the northern beaches, but your heart goes out to them. That was a tragic event. So, always get advice, look at the contract, talk to the agent, talk to the council, talk to your building inspector, especially if you're buying, because a lot of people are doing sea changes now.
You're right.
So you might know every little creek and stream in the northern beaches, and you go buy up in Port Macquarie or the Tweed River.
A lot of the comments I've just made are really relevant only to the northern beaches.
And you go up to the Tweed River and you buy right on the river, and all the locals are saying, "Man, that floods every year. What are you doing?" So you need a little bit of info in there. Would you buy? If you do all your homework, definitely. Where do we think the market will go? Well, on the northern beaches, it seems to be just gathering steam.
Yeah.
The wettest weekend last weekend, we're still getting 10 and 11 people through the open. Properties are selling $1 million over the reserve. So on to a more important subject, Stev.
Yes.
What to do with the kids when it's raining? Because the forecast for Easter, like most school holidays, is rain and more rain. So what are we going to do with kids on the northern beaches?
Look, I think I'm a father of 3 very active children. In my opinion, we have some of the best facilities Sydney's got to offer. If it doesn't rain, I'd be getting down to DY Beach. I think probably the best beach in Sydney. In my opinion, better than Manly. Manly's great for tourists, but if you want to go down there with your family, I'd rather be at DY, better than Bondi as well. So that's where I'd be heading.
Mark and Lisa, they just crashed the car.
That's right.
They're living
this. That's it. Because you don't want to be there. Get here to DY. Manly Dam. Manly Dam is a huge family attraction. Again, if the weather's good, get down there. Barbecue areas. Lots of open space. Great place to share with the family.
Well, look, if you're in the Sydney Metropolitan, you don't know what to do. Wet weather. My top things to do on the northern beaches when it is wet is number one is to get on all your wet weather clothes, have a dry pair of clothes in the car if you're driving from outside the beaches. Drive down, you can park in DY car park, there won't be any people there. And you can walk from DY Beach along the sand right up past the golf course to the lookout up there at Long Reef. And you've got a beautiful view up to Palm Beach, down to Manly. If it's raining, it'll be spectacular. You can see what's washed into the beach with these great weather events. And then top it all off, and all our local coffee shop owners, because they bank on Easter being sunny and everyone coming, get a hot coffee, get a hot chocolate, be the best you've ever tasted. Change off out of your wet clothes, put them in the boot of the car, drive home. Yeah, that's a great day out. The Manly Ferry with these sorts of weather, it's the best roller coaster in town. So you can catch the ferry.
Cheapest too, probably.
Oh, yeah, they get you a bit.
Forget the Easter show. Get on the Manly Ferry.
You can just pay one ticket, and when they try to get you off, just hide under the seats. We used to do that. But you catch the ferry over the Circular Quay. There's that little period through the heads that's really quite wild and woolly. Once again, getting to see nature at its finest.
Yep.
Another great thing, go up to North Head.
Yeah.
Walk around there. There's walks around there. In the weather, just as good. Bring something dry to change into. My young one, wet weather, couldn't surf because what generally happens with these big weather events, especially if we're getting easterly winds, it blows in everything out for sea. The water quality is not so good. I wouldn't recommend going swimming, but they were out. They were in the puddles doing skimboarding. They made a water slide with black plastic at North Kirkle and tried to break their arms and legs doing that. I wouldn't recommend that either. If you're local on the northern beaches, we've got 6 libraries on the northern beaches. If you've got little kids
Yeah.
or want some time out, they can go in there. You can encourage them to pick up some reading. Amazing service.
Another thing I'll
with
say on libraries, Glen, is my kids do frequent it quite often. You can actually get in there and they rent DVDs, and it's like an old Video Easy. Blockbuster for those that remember it. But there's more than just books down at your local library.
Well, what was
Music
really
and
interesting with the
videos.
libraries here is that the libraries on the northern beaches throughout COVID, you couldn't go into the library. 15,000 books went in and out of the library over that period.
Wow.
And kids were picking up reading. Stevan and I, we dearly wish we could read. We wouldn't have to be real estate agents. But there's some great things, and look to do that. Look, if it's wet like this, if you stay in your local area, go for a walk, visit, your local coffee shop, keep the money in the community, because all those businesses, they sort of, especially on the northern beaches, they got a double hit. So they got COVID. They thought on the northern beaches, they'd kick everything off at Christmas time, and then we were shut down again. And now we're looking to have a rainy Easter, which is my favourite holiday.
Yeah.
It's my favourite holiday.
It's almost been 12 months since the initial kind of outbreak of COVID. I'll say the term outbreak. And this is really probably our first break as potential, for families to get out and
for a lot of people,
and get out and back and enjoy what's on our footsteps.
So rounding it up,
Yep.
Rounding it up like an Easter egg, I suppose.
Yep.
I want to buy a property. I'm worried it could be in a flood zone. I'm worried it could fall into the ocean. What should I do?
Look, check the appropriate documents in the contract. Definitely speak to your solicitor about it. Speak to counsel if you've got questions about what you can build or any kind of restrictions.
Who would you talk to at council?
They're generally pretty good. If you go in, I'd probably speak to someone in the planning department. So if you just go in, or even give Northern Beaches Council a call, just ask for someone in the planning department. They'll be able to give you, some advice on it. Definitely legal advice is something that a lot of people follow. But on the Northern Beaches, look, it's a personal thing, but like I said, it generally means you're close to the water, which is a good thing in the world of real estate. And like Glen said, property sold at over $1 million reserve, over $1 million above the reserve last weekend at auction right on Narrabeen Lakes. So good spot to be. One last thing, Glen. How are your pink balls going?
Well, Stev, you're not a doctor, so I'm not going to answer you.
Right. What have we got here, mate?
Oh, these are a great promotion. We've got some fabulous storage resources
Guys,
we're leasing.
So guys, is this going to work? Is that? Oh, come on.
That's it,
There we
Stevie.
go, guys. Need some storage. $25, $35, $45. Great value. Call Novak Properties. Oh, come on, focus for me. Oh, this is all part of the. All right. Basically, it says call us here. Novak Properties 89786888. But a ton of storage opportunities. You're going to see these going around. If you're a tradie, keep your eye out, because you are more than likely going to be seeing one of these little fun bouncy balls
Under your window wiper in the back of your truck.
The back of your ute.
If you want to come in and pick one up, if you're one of the local kids or a big kid at heart, more than happy
If
to.
your kids are bored over Easter, come down. We've got a ton of these little balls to hand out. Go out and play some handball, throw it at your mates, whatever you want to do. But guys, some great opportunity for some storage. If you're between houses, if you're thinking of clearing out the garage because it's full of COVID junk, you need a bit more space. Great options from $25 here on the Northern Beaches.
Yep. So from us, Stev and Glen, we might not see you before Easter. Have a happy and safe Easter.
Yep.
Be really careful out there driving. We saw a few bingles out the front here. And from us to your families, wishing you all the best.
Have a safe and happy Easter, guys. Look
Cheers.
forward to seeing you soon.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye. Bye.